Springboks 55, Georgia 10. On the face of it, job done, I suppose, at the end of the day, because the goal was always to win. It was always to win relatively big, was to try new combinations, to get some new players onto the field. We ticked a lot of those boxes. There will be a feeling a little bit of sloppiness in amongst the box, which maybe sounds harsh when a team scores 55 points, but we also did score 3 tries in the last 3 minutes to sort of put that score on. And I think realistically, we weren't as clinical, we weren't as solid as we probably wanted to be, before the kickoff of the game. If you had asked us, in the week, kind of what you wanted to do. And it took us a while. And I think also we do have to give a bit of credit to Georgia, who are not the pushover side that I think everybody thinks of. They are the 11th ranked side in the world, yes. I do think we are seeing a slight sort of improvement in the tier 2 nations, where it's no longer just as soon as you play a tier 2 nation, it's going to be 100 plus points. So I think there are better sides than there were maybe 10, 15 years ago. Having said that, I do think the box should have been far more clinical. And there were definitely moments today where we were sitting there going, that's not really acceptable. When we did score tries, we scored some absolute pearlers. And what we've definitely noticed is a deliberate change in the way the box are playing. We're keeping the ball alive. We're running it from deep. We're trying to go wide quite quickly. We've got wraparounds. We've got offloads in the tackle. We've got offloads, off the ground and the likes of that. So we're trying to up the tempo. And I think the reason that we're going to up the tempo is to try and enhance the impact of our bench, to try and run teams ragged. And I mean, Ruan Okia getting man of the match of the year on the screen, massive shift from him. And he's really putting his hand up at the moment to be involved with the box in some of the big games. But it's about adapting to this game plan. And I think that's kind of the reason we've seen stronger teams being picked against Italy. And even now, a pretty strong team being picked for Georgia is because we've got a new game plan. We've got a new way we want to play, but we need to try and refine it. And we need to start giving players opportunities to do that in a match situation. But let's have a look at exactly how things sort of transpired, shall we? So we actually went down. First up, Kokadza went over and scored the first try of the game in the second minute. A more try as well. So we talked about things that are kind of almost like red flag moments. Conceding another more try is probably one of those moments, And that's something that, regardless of whether we're trying things, should not be happening, So that is a major work on versus, we had a few knock-ons because we were trying, Hail Mary pass and the likes of that. So we went down, but it didn't take us long to get back. And I'll tell you what, our first 2 tries coming from debutants, Bowen Fenter going over in the 8th minute. It is quite a long way from Cape Town to Imombela and from Gqeberha to Imombela, but Sasha Van Zulu left his kicking boot somewhere because he was not good off the tee. In fact, he only got his first conversion on the 4th attempt. So we were actually still down after that first try. Then Miles van der Merwe scored on the back of our first more try of the day. And then Kane Moody. Now, Kane Moody's try is the reason why it's exciting, despite a bit of sloppiness, is because you look at the build-up and, the aerial game and the winning the ball in the aerial game, and then some of the lines being run by Grant Williams as Peter Toy runs a dummy line, opens up a gap that Grant Williams takes. And it's just, when you see some of these moves coming together, you can just see the thinking, you can see the plan, and you can see how exciting it is. But it's not always going to happen perfectly. And I think that's the big thing that we're trying to refine now, is becoming a lot more consistent with putting that sort of stuff up. And the Kane Moody try was gorgeous. It was really, really good. So suddenly you go up to 15-7, you're thinking, here we go. Georgia kicked a penalty in the 28th minute. For Edel van der Merwe scored his first try. Very easy try, in fairness. Has scored a couple of very good ones in his first few games. In fact, he's 5 in 3 games. But this time it was just relentless pressure, to be honest, from the box. And then a ball over the top from Grant Williams, straight to the hands of Van der Merwe, who strolled over. Sasha this time finding it. So at 22-10 at half-time, we probably weren't particularly happy, to be brutally honest. Yes, we had scored 4 tries. We had left 6 points out there, so it should have been 28-10. But we had conceded 2 tries, or a try, and more try. More importantly, I just don't think we were as clinical as we wanted to be. The second half, we started well. Miles van der Merwe went over for try number 2. And then Willemse came on in the 55th minute when we deployed our bomb squad about the 48th minute. And then Willemse came on shortly after that and went over for a try, looked pretty good at the back of a scrum, just sort of glided through and darted down. Pollard then adding the extras. And then Edel van der Merwe went over in the 72nd minute with a really intelligent try. After, to be fair, 56 to 70 minutes, we just couldn't really find points. And that's where I think, we had a period of 15 minutes of sloppiness. And maybe it was a bit easy to become quite negative during that period because there was just so much going on, so much unstructured play that it just looked very messy, to be perfectly honest. And I think Georgia did that quite deliberately to try and make it messy. And I also think we were very, very consciously trying not to be overly structured, set up a maul or set up a ruck, go one phase to the ball, kick deep, try and play a very structured, coordinated game. I think we were quite happy to try and play a little bit in the unstructured, sections and sort of see how that looks. But then a very intelligent piece of play, some really nice moves, a little chip over the top from Faf de Klerk, and Edel van der Merwe said, thank you very much. And then some fantastic rugby after that. I mean, Curtly Arnston's try, all stemming from Arcus Neyman getting an offload on the ground, chicken wing pass to the hands of Grant Williams, who gives it to Curtly Arnston. And then we once again make a really good break, a couple of good breaks, and Pollard strides over and he adds extra 2 points. So, in the end, all very straightforward, but maybe not as straightforward as we would have liked. So if you look at some of the stats, 3.6 points per entry. We entered the 22 15 times compared to Georgia's 6. So again, that all looks pretty straightforward in all honesty. We look at the attack profile. Now, this I think is really exciting. Look at how much, we've got lots of 22 entries, lots of post-contact meters, lots of line breaks, plenty of carries, but also a reasonable amount of kicks. You can see how Georgia looked to try and kick a lot more than us, and that was exciting. 6 line breaks, but 242 post-contact meters. And it shows you that our approach is pretty multifaceted, to be honest. It's not just, a case of kick meters and or line breaks or specifically just carries and relentless carries. It's a bit of a combination. Obviously, the big thing we want to try and dominate on the day is the physicality and lots of dominant tackles being made, which was good to see. Missed a few tackles, but some turnovers. Our breakdown work wasn't too bad today. Ruck speed, very, very good. I mean, 63% of our rucks in 0 to 3 seconds is not normal at all. And we had well over 85% of our rucks, within 6 seconds. So we can see it was a conscious, and you're always going to get that with Grant Williams, in particular. But even when Faf de Klerk came on, there was definitely a conscious moment of trying to play quickly. And that, I think, was a very, very effective way of really setting things up. But sometimes maybe it was too quick. Sometimes, we almost took the ball out and we weren't quite set, or people didn't quite know where they needed to be. But again, that's all part of the process. If we look at some of the stats, territory-wise, pretty 50-50. Possession, 53%, 47%. But set plays, 100% scrum record, that was pretty good. Lineouts, however, Bongi Manami in particular, needs to sort it out because there were far too many lineouts that weren't good enough. That one restart that we didn't receive was when Damien Delende knocked it on. Apart from that, we were relatively solid, but I'm a little bit worried about our lineouts. They've been a bit sloppy. So that's definitely also one of our work-ons on the attack. Looked pretty standard. Penalties, 9 penalties conceded to 8. Not too much to worry about there. And defense-wise, 82%. Not too much to worry about there. In terms of individual performances, Damien Delende carrying very well, as always. Canan Moodie getting on the ball a lot. Again, we've probably seen Canan Moodie getting more on the ball than we might have seen like a Jason Creel in the last few years. And I'm not saying that's necessarily just because of a Jason Creel versus Canan Moodie, but there's definitely a ploy to get them more involved, to get them opportunities to have a go. Edel van der Merwe had 2 line breaks. We had Grant Williams with 2 line breaks. Sash Van Gomezulu with 1. George did all the tackles. We didn't actually have anybody who tackled more than, I think about 10 tackles was our highest tackle, which I think actually was Ruan Nokia. And look, at the end of the day, as I said, job done. Were there work-ons? 100%. It'd be interesting to see what Rassi Rasmus has to say. But we are definitely seeing a new style of rugby being created, and it's going to take a while before we can really be that clinical and we can kind of play to that game plan flawlessly. What I think the big question is what do we do against an Australia and a New Zealand and an Argentina and Ireland and a France? Are we going to see this, or are we going to see us move back to a more traditional Springbok game time? Only time will tell. But let me know what you think down in the comments below.